Tim Cook is no longer Apple's CEO and what the future might look like. The likely iPhone 18 Pro colors have been revealed. Fresh new details on iOS 27. Why this week's iOS update was actually pretty important, and much more. All in today's episode of Apple Weekly. Okay, so let's start with by far the biggest news of the week and perhaps of the past several years when it comes to Apple. And that is the fact that Tim Cook has stepped down as CEO effective September 1st. And now John Ternus is set to take over and become the new CEO of Apple. And Tim Cook is going to transition over to the executive chairman, where he'll advise Apple and handle global policy engagement. So this was quite a surprise. More specifically, the timing of this. We knew Tim Cook was going to step down, but the timing was interesting because we had two reliable sources saying two different things. One side was saying, that Tim Cook was not going to step down anytime soon. And the other side, the Financial Times, said that he is going to be stepping down in the first half of 2026, and the Financial Times was correct with that. And I think the overall online sentiment of Tim Cook stepping down has been overwhelmingly positive. I think more importantly, because everybody's excited for John Ternus to get in there and see what he can do to innovate with Apple, next. But of course, don't get it twisted. Apple did tremendous under Tim Cook's leadership because they went from a $350 billion company to over a $4 trillion company. So they gained $3.66 trillion in market value under Tim Cook. That is highly impressive. But the reason everybody's so excited for John Ternus to get in there and lead the helm at Apple is because he's been there for 25 years and he played a role in building pretty much everything from the iPhone to the M series chips on the Mac. So he's a hardware guy through and through. So it's going to be exciting to see what type of hardware, evolution we can see with Apple under Ternus. Now, Tim Cook did also write a heartfelt personal letter to the Apple community after announcing his departure, and it was featured on Apple's homepage. It's really cool. I'll leave it linked below. He basically says that he starts every morning reading user emails. He also called leading Apple the best job in the world and said that Ternus is the perfect person for the job. And he signed off the letter as Tim, a person who grew up in a rural place in a different time, which is very different energy from a big corporation. Like you'd expect it to be very formal. This just seemed very personal. I mean, it was nice. And the other exciting thing about this move is that now Johnny Sarugi will also be taking over as Apple's chief hardware officer. And that's also been a great move because he has been well known as Apple's chip lead. And he's overseen the development of Apple silicon chips for the Mac since day one. So him being in charge of hardware now is also a huge benefit for Apple. So all in all, I think it's very hard to disagree with any of these moves that Apple has done. And it really sets the stage and really honestly gets me very excited for the next, 15 years or whatever it ends up being with Ternus, maybe longer. We'll see, maybe shorter, it could be wrong, but it just seems very exciting right now to be, in the world of Apple. And especially for me to be covering Apple, this is very exciting because I think we're going to see a lot of pretty big changes. It's going to take a little while for us to see them, but I think, the future could be quite different in a good way. We might be seeing more risks. We've heard that Ternus is a little bit more risk adverse sometimes, so we'll see about that, but he is a hardware guy at the end of the day. So it's going to be very exciting to see what comes, of Apple in the next decade plus. But let's talk about something coming a little bit sooner than the next decade plus. Let's talk about this year and the iPhone 18 Pros because we saw the full lineup of colors that are coming this year. So this comes from Macworld, and they basically said that, last year they got the colors right. So they're doing it again this year. And they said that Macworld has received information from a source familiar with Apple's supply chain regarding the color options for the iPhone 18 lineup. And they list out not only the colors, but also the Pantone color code. So like a very specific color here. So these are definitely looking like they're going to be accurate. And as you can see, dark cherry is the new signature color to replace cosmic orange for this year. There's also going to be a light blue, a dark gray, and a silver. And you might have also noticed that we are not getting a black option once again. So last year, a lot of people were mad that there was no black. Looks like it's going to be the same this year. So of course, we are going to be seeing the 18 Pro and Pro Max and the iPhone Ultra later this year, but the base model iPhone 18 is not going to come until the spring of 2027. And we have new updates on the base iPhone 18 And it's not good news because it looks like Apple's trying to, reduce any type of possibility of increasing the price of the 18. So they're going to downgrade some of the hardware, in the base model just so they don't have to raise the price. And we're hearing this, we've heard this multiple times from Fixed Focus Digital, and he's saying the iPhone 18 has certain manufacturing downgrades that brings it closer to the iPhone 18e to cut costs. And he says that the display will be downgraded, resulting in inferior screen quality to the iPhone 17. So he doesn't say the specifics of what's going to be downgraded with the display. He just says it is going to be worse. So I have a hard time thinking Apple's going to remove the ProMotion display. I don't really think they would do that after just 1 year. So maybe they're going to, make it have a hit in brightness. Maybe it's not going to get as bright as the Pros. We'll have to wait and see. And he also mentions that we're going to see a performance downgrade as well. So I'd imagine that also is going to be something like the GPUs. The GPU cores going from 5 GPU cores to 4 GPU cores, even though we are expected to have the A20 chip inside with 12 gigabytes of RAM. And he's pretty confident in these rumors because the EVT process, which is the engineering validation testing of the iPhone 18 and 18e, are apparently set to take place simultaneously in June. So it seems like all the details are finalized and Apple is ready to go into mass production for these products. So that's why he's pretty confident in saying that we are going to see these hardware downgrades with the base model this time. Now we also have some fresh details on the iPhone Ultra, Apple's upcoming foldable phone that's also coming later this year in September, most likely, maybe later in the year, but it is coming this year. So this actually comes from Vadim over at Max Tech, great channel over there. So they got fresh dummy models here of the 18 Pros and the iPhone Ultra. So they showed this off, and I'll leave a video link below as well that they did covering this, but you can see that the 18 Pro and Pro Max cameras and the camera plateau appear to be a good bit thicker than the 17 Pros. Even though the design overall looks about the same, you will notice a difference in thickness this time around. And as far as the iPhone Ultra, it has that 7.8 inch inner screen, of course, when it's opened up. It's kind of like an iPad mini sized display, and it's just slightly smaller than the 8.3 inch iPad mini. So has super thin bezels. That's going to make the display almost just as large as the iPad mini, which is crazy. And apparently it feels amazing in the hands for playing games like Call of Duty, as Vadim said here on X. And he also compares it to the iPhone 17 Pro Max here and shows that it's almost the same display width, but more than 50% taller in this angle that he has it at. Now, when the iPhone Fold is closed up, it's going to be 11 millimeters thick, so it is going to be a pretty thick boy, but will be really thin when it's opened up at 4.5 millimeters. So that's set to be Apple's thinnest device ever, even thinner than the iPhone Air, which would be pretty cool when you have that opened up. But not everything is good news right now, because we got a fresh report from Mark Gurman just recently that says that the global memory shortage is impacting Apple, and we might see some delays for some upcoming Macs, more specifically the upcoming Mac Studio and the MacBook Ultra, or the MacBook Pro with a touchscreen, whatever it ends up being called. So Gurman said this: Apple has long been working on new Mac Studio models. The company had earmarked the release for around the middle of the year, but with shortages already pushing back shipments of current memory-heavy models several months, I'm told that the new Mac Studios are likely to be postponed as well. Right now, there's a belief internally that the new models won't ship until around October. So again, we were expecting those around WWDC time. We thought those could be announced in June at the Worldwide Developers Conference. That would make the most sense, but it's looking like we're not going to see that now until much later in the year, potentially into October. And he says the other future Mac getting a lot of hype right now is a MacBook Pro with a touchscreen. As I've reported from the beginning, these have been slated for release between the end of 2026 and early 2027. With the shortages, along with the move to M6 chips, be prepared for these to potentially come on the later end of that timeline. The products will be ready for fall from a software standpoint, so the later timing would just be tied to supply. So yeah, it looks like the MacBook Pro with a screen or the MacBook Ultra was 100% set to come in 2026 at the end of 2026 until these, memory shortages started showing up and really getting severe even for Apple. So that's a bit unfortunate, but at least we will be seeing for sure the new Mac Studio sometime in 2026. So I wish we would have got the touchscreen MacBook this year as well, but it looks like, based on what he's saying, that's going to be coming in the first half of next year in 2027. Now here is something I thought I would never see. Google has just confirmed an upcoming Apple feature at their event. Yes. And of course, I am talking about the upcoming Siri that is going to be powered by Google Gemini. So Google just held their Google Cloud Next 2026 conference. And while there, they said this: "We're collaborating with Apple as their preferred cloud provider to develop the next generation of Apple Foundation models based on Gemini technology. These models will now power future Apple Intelligence features, including a more personalized Siri coming later this year." So yeah, I never thought I'd see the day where Google confirms that the next generation of Siri is coming this year before Apple even did. Of course, Apple said it's coming in 2026, but still, just to see Google confirm it on their site and at their event is pretty insane. And by the way, a lot of people have been confused about the whole Google Gemini and Siri thing, so I just want to clear something up real quick. It's not going to be like Siri is just going to be Google Gemini, just, advertised as Siri. That's not the case. Basically Apple is taking the Google Gemini models and putting them into Apple's own, in-house foundation models. So they're basically putting a supercharger on a stock car. If you're a car guy, they're basically doing that. So it's still Apple's proprietary like Siri. They're just using Google's models to make theirs better. So yes, Google Gemini is absolutely going to be a big reason that Siri is better, but it's not just going to be another clone of Google Gemini, if that makes sense. Now, speaking of that next version of Apple Intelligence and iOS 27, let's talk about the device compatibility, because we just saw a rumor this week from Instant Digital that shows that the iPhone 12 and newer are going to be supported with iOS 27. So that means that the iPhone 11, the 11 Pro, 11 Pro Max, and the iPhone SE 2 will all be dropped and will not be supported with iOS 27. And we also got fresh details from Mark Gurman once again about a iOS 27 feature related to Siri. So he says that the WWDC invite hints at the Siri indicator being in the dynamic island, and that it's more apparent in dark mode, which is why Apple's marketing materials for the event are all dark this year. And I've talked about this before, but basically, this glow that you see around the screen right there, that will not be there anymore with iOS 27 apparently. It's going to be all up in the dynamic island. We might see that glow, that rainbow glow around the dynamic island instead of around the entire screen. So that'll be fun to see, and I'm really excited to see all the other iOS 27 features as well. But let's flip on over here to our phone. So I have my phone pulled up here, and we have a few things to talk about here. So first off, let's go into maps. So if you go down to Miami, Florida right here, you will see at the Miami International Autodrome, you will see, look how good the track looks now. So it's also been updated for the guides. So if you go to, Miami International Autodrome right there and you scroll down, you will see that the 2026 Formula One tracks around the world, if you tap on this, this is Apple's guide, like their own official guide right here. And you can see this has been updated to include Miami right there for the upcoming F1 race, which is on May 1st through the 3rd. And look how much you can zoom in on this. You can literally see like the seats at the Hard Rock Beach Club right here. And you can see the stands right here, the grandstands. There's just so much detail with Apple Maps. I love it. And especially here on the F1 track. You can see the water in there, the gates, everything. It's pretty amazing. You see the Hard Rock Stadium. Super cool. Also this week, we saw OpenAI launch ChatGPT Images 2.0, which comes with thinking capabilities, and it's just better overall. And it's really gone viral this week. As you can see here on Twitter, a lot of people shared images of just how insanely good this is and how it's going to put some designers out of business. It's pretty insane how good it is. And here's a live example, actually. I just said to make a professional poster art of Oscar Piastri and take a look at what it made. This is just a prompt, a very simple prompt. Take a look at what it made right there in ChatGPT Images 2.0. I mean, that is amazing. The small details down here, the McLaren in the bottom. I mean, look at that. Yes, it's copying what else is out there. Of course, that's what, any type of LLM is doing. But just take a look at how good that is, just from a prompt. That's amazing. So if you haven't already tried it, trust me, just try it out. It's much better than I expected it to be with every prompt I've given it. Now, if you follow me over on Twitter, you might have seen that I shared this video right here. And I said it's the coolest video ever shot on an iPhone, and it's not even close. And what that is Reed Wiseman shooting. Just take a look right here. He shot this with an iPhone, and he said, let me just read this real quick. He said, like watching sunset at the beach from the most foreign seats in the cosmos, I couldn't resist a cell phone video of Earthset. And he said, I could barely see the moon through the docking hatch window, but the iPhone was the perfect size to catch the view. This is uncropped, uncut with 8x zoom, which is quite comparable to the view of the human eye. Enjoy. And take a look at this video right here. I'll actually put this in full screen, but look at this. Look at that. That is taken from an iPhone at 8x. That's like what the human eye would see from them in space. Of course, this is from NASA in space with the whole Artemis launch, but take a look at Earthsat there, going into the moon or behind the moon. That is pretty amazing. And this video obviously blew up. It got 18 million views over here. Just really incredible stuff. It's like, what a time to be alive, where we see an iPhone recording something as extravagant and incredible as that. Okay, so now we have to come back to reality, come back to Earth, and talk about some boring stuff. So let's talk about iOS 26.5 Beta 3, which did get released this week. So as you can see right here, this is 26.5 Beta 3. The build number ends with an E right there. And this update, as you guys could tell, because I didn't make a video, I just made a community post once again, there was really nothing new in the update. There were minor changes in the code, and that's it. Nothing worthy of making a full dedicated video for, so that's why I did not make a video, and instead I opted to make a community post for that. But this was not the important update of the week, because the important update was actually if you're not on the betas, and that is 26.4.2. And this update was important because it does have bug fixes, and most importantly, this patches the flaw that let the FBI extract deleted signal messages. And I did cover that story a little while back. That was important. Now, is it going to happen to you? Is the whole signal hack thing going to happen to you? No, literally 0 people watching this video would ever have that happen to them, but that's not the point. You still want to update to 26.4.2 for the other security patches as well that are included in the update. And let's talk about what to expect next, because next week is the final week of April. I cannot believe how fast 2025 is rolling by. So next week's going to be the week of the 27th. So April 27th, that is when I would expect to see the next iOS 26.5 beta. There is a potential to see the RC next week, so either we're going to see a beta 4 or an RC on the 27th, and of course if it is the RC, we'll see the final on that first week of May. However, it could be beta 4 and then RC on the week of May 4th, and then the final on the week of May 11th for 26.5, and then after that, of course, we are going to see iOS 27 beta 1 right there on Monday, June 8th. And then finally, I wanted to share some photos and videos that you guys sent me of the Apple Museum in the Netherlands. So over the past couple of weeks, I've asked you guys if you are going to be visiting or if you live in the Netherlands to please send me photos and videos of the new Apple Museum that just opened up over on Instagram. I'm just at Brandon Butch on Instagram, and a lot of you guys sent photos and videos. So I really appreciate that. There was like a dozen of you guys who went there and sent me your photos and videos. So I really appreciate that. I'm going to go through some of them because I think it's actually really cool to see like what we actually see in person instead of all the images you see online, like the press images and all the professional photos. These are what actual people see. So you can kind of see what some of this looks like right here. Looks super awesome. If I'm ever in the Netherlands anytime soon, I will absolutely be going there. Really anytime, actually. I will be going there to check it out. So you can see all the vintage stuff right there. We have some other photos right here. And here's my favorite room. This is the kind of rainbow Apple Mac room. So take a look at that. It has all the colors right there of the Macs in one room. You have this little interactive Think Different room right here. Just look at these photos. This looks awesome. So of course there's history right here. There's writing about all these old Macs and everything. And I'm not sure what this is supposed to be, but it just says Apple. It's like kind of engraved in there. It says Apple computer with a keyboard down at the bottom. Not too sure what that is, but that's cool. Look at the Apple II right there. All the different Apple logos through the years. And then here's some photos from somebody else. They sent this. So take a look. That's how you can get a good look at the kind of depth of the museum as well with the old computers at the stations. Take a look at those chairs as well. I want one of those chairs for myself. Wow, that's a cool shot right there. So it shows like the inside of the G3 Mac. So yeah, super awesome museum. I can't wait to visit it myself one day. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Apple Weekly. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Also let me know all your thoughts down there in the comments below. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching and I'll see you soon.